A week ago, a little more than a week ago, there was a plan put out. Andy Valinsky and a group of other folks, Andy probably the best known of the folks in there, that involved income tax and a statewide property tax that would, the way it was described, not be like the current one where if you raise more than the formula suggests you should get, and right now you get to keep it. So it's not really
Yeah.
statewide. It's labeled that it's collected locally, it's kept locally. The state is sort of just a label on it.
Yeah.
His would actually have a redistributive element. The biggest criticism, one of the biggest criticisms, and I had them on last week and we talked about it. How do you avoid a situation where 5 years from implementation, we don't have similarly high property taxes and, in this case, a 3% income tax? Because that is the fear, and I
Yeah.
hear it, and it's a legitimate fear. Because if we did end up in that situation, then whether you're upper class, middle class, lower class economically, more tax, you're going to get hit to some extent. So what do you think of that? Obviously, it wasn't your plan. You didn't put it out, but you're running for governor, so folks are
Yeah.
going to ask, what do you think of that concern, and what do you do about it?
Yeah. I think it's a valid concern, especially we have a lot of people in New Hampshire who are sort of tax refugees from Connecticut. And I've talked to a lot of these people over the years, and they all will tell you, we didn't have the income tax, and they brought it in, and it didn't lower any taxes, and the taxes just keep going up. So I think it's a fear that we have to address for sure. And I think that there's a way where we could, through legislation, say that the state is mandated to cover 70% of the school expenses, and the towns and cities are going to cover the other 30, something like that. But I think people got to understand that if the state is going to cover a much bigger chunk of the school budget, there's going to be a level of control that the communities are going to have to give up. I don't think I don't think it makes sense for the state to be giving more money and having less control or the same amount or no control. And not to say that they should micromanage the schools, but I think that, when we start talking about how big our school districts are and, do we need a curriculum coordinator for every school, or maybe could we have one for every district? Is there some economies of scale we could look at, to sort of say to the more conservative folks, like, all right, maybe there is some ways we could save money administratively by having a little bit more state management of just the admin costs, basically, and the admin in general. Um, and I think that is, we got to meet sort of people where they're at. And I think it's fair to say, if the state's paying for a bigger chunk of the school, and I think they should, that there's going to have to be some give and take between the school districts. A good example would be our town, Newmarket, was about 10 or so years ago.